Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me on this channel, Adults ESL Online Learning. I'm Dr. Hernandez Smith, and this video is about the film Apollo 10 and a Half. It's currently streaming on Netflix, and let's talk about it. It shows Stanley, and Stanley is 10 and a half, and Stanley was at school when he was recruited by NASA to go to space for a secret mission. He showed what life was like in Houston in 1969. He described everything was new, influenced by NASA, and flat, which is true. If you've ever been to Houston, it's very flat and it floods instantly. Stan was a very observant kid and also the youngest in his family. And there are lots of scenes of him playing with his siblings and learning from his older brothers and sisters. And it's very endearing and a lot of fun to watch. Uh, Stan's dad was in charge of shipping and receiving at NASA, but Stan wished his dad was an astronaut. He wished his father was more or did something more exciting. But everyone in that community had a sense of duty, and they also had a sense of responsibility. So Stan grew up watching his neighbors taking care of the house, taking care of the children, taking care of each other, watching over each other, and um, working very hard, and also working for NASA. A lot of the people in his neighborhood and in that community were employed by NASA. So uh, he thought about it quite often, um, at home and also at school in his science classes. So he also showed a lot of um, love for his grandparents. He reflected on his grandparents at the very beginning of the film about how sweet they were and how eccentric they were, because one side of his from one set of grandparents were very frugal, and that came from growing up during the Depression or having lived through the Depression. And then he also had another set of grandparents who were very, I guess, paranoid and believed in conspiracy theories. So it's a lot of fun listening and watching Stan react to his grandparents. He also described the Cold War drills that he did and the protesting of the Vietnam War. He showed how wonderful life was, but also there was um, other side, this other side of paranoia, and it was very dark too. Children didn't have rights, and they were abused by adults, and it was accepted, and just the dangers of how life was back then. For example, um, pollution. It wasn't against the law to litter, and now it is. At least in Texas, it's against the law to litter. And through Stan's reflection, we see how bad the littering had been, the pollution had been from humans, from people. And it's still bad, but this is just the daily pollution that they experienced before the laws were taken into place. Anyway, after watching and listening to news about the space programs, because NASA was always in the news. There was always new inventions because we wanted to beat the Russians in our advancement in our space programs. Stan would imagine of himself as an astronaut. So his imagination was would blur into reality. He believed that he too was up on the moon, that he too um, was in strict training to go up to space because he was studying it at school. He was watching it, the rockets or missions being launched every year at school. And his father worked at NASA, his neighbors worked at NASA. So this little boy was very influenced on the space program, this NASA space program. And um, he also showed us what it would be like to having lived through that wonderful age of national pride, um, from a kid's perspective. I don't think we have that right now, and um, I think we're a country that's very divided. Especially, it's a different time. We have a pandemic going on, or and uh, politics are very um, polarizing, and pollution. Global warming is real, but and we also have the wars going on around the world. But a sense of a program like our country could be very proud of, and we do, but it doesn't seem as strong as it was, like from this generation, from this child's perspective, growing up in 1969. And as an adult in 2022, I don't see that same pride in one specific program. Maybe women's soccer. Our women's soccer team is out of this world. Um, yeah. So let me know what you think and leave a comment in the comment section. This was my question from watching Apollo 10 and a half. What was special about your childhood? Let me get this. What was special about your childhood? In my childhood, I grew up in the 80s and in the 90s. And in my childhood, I remember loving the Saturday morning cartoons that were still going on as described in this movie, Apollo 10 and a half. And I just remember being able to go to the border of Texas and Mexico and um, going back and forth freely. Now there's a lot of border. It's just not the same. Um, but going back and forth and being able to eat the candies and um, go across the bridge just just to go shopping and come back, or get a fresh haircut and come back. It was a lot of fun. Uh, those were my summers. And then Um, in the 80s and 90s, oh, the music. I enjoy the music. I loved movies that were back then. And of course, being able to play with my friends and hang out. Not necessarily text. We didn't have texting, that hadn't been invented yet, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great childhood. So, yeah, what was special about your childhood? And there are other films that this movie reminds me of, because this movie captures that specialness in a child's, that wonder in childhood. It reminds me of Small Change, the Francois Truffaut film, where it's seen through a child's perspective. Life is seen through a child's perspective, and this movie doesn't really have a, um, like your traditional plot. It's just a boy's imagination and describing what life was like in Houston in 1969 with the influence of NASA. Um, so we get to experience this type of life, where the laws weren't as strict, um, but it was very safe yet dangerous. It's a fun movie to watch. I highly suggest it. So if you like Richard Linklater movies, and if you like, stories about wonder and children with lots of nostalgia, I highly recommend Apollo 10 and a half. Well, thank you so much for watching. And if you have, um, any ideas or um, special moments that you can recall from your childhood, I'd love for you to share them in the comment section. And if you like this video, please hit the like button. And if you want to be notified when more videos like this are uploaded, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.